Hello and welcome to the Right Click Say podcast. I'm your host Calcio, joined as always by my fellow host Jimmy T. We also have a lovely friend of ours that we met out in Miami. It's the gentleman, the scholar, Kenobi. How are you today, Kenobi?
I'm great. How are you two?
Delightful. Good. Busy. Recovering still from Miami and the things that happened.
Yeah, the recovery was long after this one.
But we wanted to get Kenobi on because he is actually the co-founder of Metaverse Miami, which was a brilliant event that we attended the latter end of before Art Basel's antics ensued. And I thought it'd be a great idea to kind of chat about how hosting an event in the current Web3 sphere was, whether or not it was something which you guys would be repeating. I obviously know the answer to that. And just generally getting a bit more of an insight into how you found the whole week. So starting where we probably should start, how did you actually find Metaverse Miami as an event itself?
Just before we get into that, let's have a quick word from our sponsors who make this show possible.
Moniverse is an art-based project that uses the power of NFTs to hone in on culture and bring it to the forefront. Their aim is to connect communities from across the globe via the most iconic monuments and champion artists and the legacy they create. Moniverse gives holders a unique experience in which they can travel back in time to see what man's greatest creations looked like upon conception via an immersive and educational experience that displays history, art and culture with guided tours via their AI-powered guides. The first drop successfully launched on the 11th of November and featured the stunning Archer piece in Milan, Italy. Following episodes will continue to expand the Moniverse and allow holders access to in-real-life events and further growing out the understanding of the incredible world we live in. Links to find out more will be provided in the description below. Starting where we probably should start, how did you actually find Metaverse Miami as an event itself?
It was my first time in Web3 actually organizing and running an event. So most of these events I've attended, being the one who's organizing it, it's obviously a very different experience. Overall, I think it went really, really well as a first-time event. A lot of the feedback that we got from the community was very positive. Naturally, when you do a big complex event like this, there's usually a bunch of things that could be done better, and we are fine with that. And we have already started our planning for next year and debriefing on what we're going to change, what we're going to keep the same, what will amplify, things like that. But overall, the parties were well attended. I think we had 350 plus people roll through each of the welcome party and VIP parties. A lot of our speakers and panelists felt that the panels were very well curated and organized. They had good conversation coming out of those. We had a couple nationally televised interviews end up on Univision, which was great just for overall awareness of the space, especially in the Spanish-speaking community. Yeah, overall, it was a really positive event, and we got to spend a lot of time with a lot of good people.
Were there any points that you, in like the build-up to planning the event, that you worried depths of the bear market about attendance? I mean, what was when did you start planning it originally?
Well, we initially started planning this a year prior during Basel of last year. And we were still in the top, what we now know to be the top fervor of a bull market. And we were planning on dropping our event in the summer. We looked at all the different events across the calendar and had chosen initially sort of a desert because we didn't want to be stepping on anybody else's toes or competing with any other events. And so we announced that we would be in the summer. And then after we announced, NFT NYC announced they had changed their dates to be 2 weeks before ours. And then the bear market hit. And so we, in true Web3 fashion, we had to pivot in a few different ways, but we have a long-term vision. So it was never a question of whether we would do it. It was just a question of how we would execute the first year.
I actually think, to be fair, and super honestly, we only caught the back end of it literally just because when our flights fell. But to me, it was actually a really good event time because it's well documented that most shit happens before then, but everyone knows you're still going to get Basel at the end of it. And so for us, we were already going over for Art Basel, which obviously is just essentially full of pop-ups anyway. So to then have a solid event outside of that, which is actually focused on specifically catering to Web3, was really appealing. I think I tried, literally, it cost me $1,000 to move our flights, which is the only reason I didn't do it. I literally looked at it. I was like, for fuck's sake, why has no one told me about this? But it was really nice. We were obviously there for the last night, and I remember speaking to Ruski, who was one of your speakers at the event, and she said, having spoken at quite a few now, that it was one of the easiest experiences for her to actually come in and be a speaker at, which is good to hear.
Yeah, it was positive. And we, I think we kind of went above and beyond what a lot of events do as far as taking care of our speakers and really, not just inviting them to speak and then assuming they will just show up, but really take care of, some of their accommodations and travel and things like that, and just try to really take care of people. But we kind of had to, because we were a first-time event. So
where are you going to go next, though? Like, I know obviously it's called Metaverse Miami, and we obviously chatted about this in person, but it's really big for me to know that you guys are looking at other places as well. Where could potentially see the brand next?
Yeah, so the way we're thinking about it currently is flagship event in Miami in the run-up to Art Basel, kind of every year. And then I think we're not going to announce this publicly yet, so I'm not going to share that, but we have 2 more events we're talking about for 2023 in different markets other than Miami. And some of them actually, we're strategically thinking about some markets that, to our knowledge, haven't even hosted a Web3 event before. Large markets as far as overall business population, thoughtfully located, easy to run an event out of, but maybe that don't get hit by the coasts, all the normal LA, New York.
Wait. Get me somewhere in America that isn't on the coast, like somewhere cheap, somewhere where I can buy 15 Stellars.
Like Denver. Denver was the cheapest one that we went to.
Yeah, and it's still absolutely horrendous. Look, I'm talking like, I want to go like fucking Idaho. That's where I want to be. And you know why? I want to be somewhere like that. I want to get myself like, fucking get me in Kansas.
That's why you go to V-Friends, man.
That's Minnesota. Minnesota's not cheap. No, I want bargain bucket. I want to go fucking like absolute guts. Kosovo's lovely. They love Americans in Kosovo as well. They absolutely love George Bush. When you go Kosovo, right, you go through the main street and there's like a big mural of George Bush, because obviously the Yanks liberated Kosovo, helped liberate Kosovo from the Serbians. And there's a fucking massive mural. If you go down there and you go, hey man, I'm American, they absolutely lap it up, mate. Anyway, no,
I'm accent, Kelsey.
Yeah, well, it was, that's what we're gonna go with. Yeah, we're gonna go with it.
But what I was gonna say before, obviously Idaho, was we need someone to come into the UK and set up an actually decent NFT event. Is that on the agenda?
It is, and I think being that our team we have a couple members in our team that are EU based, but most of us are US, North American based. So we're going to start close to home for us and then expand. But yeah, it's definitely part of our longer, like, mid-range plan.
Yeah, nice.
We've talked about it for so long. Like, I get it. I completely understand. The US is just bigger, better. There is more of a community there, right? But we are so desperate for any excuse to spend a week doing what we did in Florida, but in London, because we sent Jimmy. I don't know if you saw. We sent Jimmy to NFT London, and I was in Austria.
Carl Pilkington.
And he sent me a picture of, but less funny. He sent us a picture of one of the conferences, right? So I'm in Austria. I'm eating like little strudels, little hot chocolate, and then I think, Jimmy having a good time. He sends me this picture, like a barren wasteland, ugly little chairs, and this manky carpeted room. I'm just thinking, that can't be all you do for one of the most iconic cities in the world. So that is where every single person we have on, we're like, look, you want to do an event, do it in London. So you should do it.
Yeah.
How did you find the rest of Art Basel though? Like, because obviously we did spend quite a lot of time together. We did play some football. We don't need to talk about what happened when we played football. We don't need to show any of the clips from when we played football.
We definitely need some of the clips.
About me nutmegging you?
Yeah,
no, we don't talk about that.
Do you have the video of that actually?
No,
we'll get that rolling on the screen in the back.
No,
I think I have quite a few assets, Jimmy, that I can provide you with to help supplement the show.
Yeah, I think
this is an animated podcast. No,
actually, that's a good point, Calcio. Jimmy, why don't you just animate me nutmegging Calcio on a football pitch for part of the show? It'd be great.
Yeah. Well, shit, I'd have to animate a lot of different characters in nutmegging him. There was a few.
I got
there was a few. It was
to be fair, Kenobi, I nutmegged you.
You did, 100%. But I didn't run my mouth about how good I was at football like Calcio did, so it was less fun.
Nice, yeah.
Listen. When I was younger, before I had a terrible knee injury, I was an enigma. I was an enigma. I should have turned up on crutches or in a wheelchair to really like oversell how bad the injury was, and then if I had been bad, you guys could have said, "Oh, fair enough." But yeah, let's not talk about Maui at all. Let's do this. So we're going to tell Maui we've mentioned him in the podcast, and then we chat about the football, and then talk about nothing more. How do we think about Maui? And what I was thinking about Web3 though is a great topic for us to talk about. So after we played football, we went to the pub, and I lost card roulette, and it was awful. But
that was funny.
Did you attend any other events at Art Basel or pop-ups where, before we get to do that at the end, but like, was there anything else you went to where you're like, fuck, this is good, I like an element of what they've done, or I want to try and do that? Was there anything you went to specifically at Art Basel where you were like, ooh, pop-ups included?
Pop-ups included. So yeah, I think I definitely spent a little bit of time cruising around the NFT Now event gateway. I went and saw what G Money had set up. I saw the various kind of storefronts that like Instagram, you know, brought a big budget to a big immersive thing. And so that was, you know, the location was a little bit tough because like it was cool because it was in downtown, but it was also like all under construction. And, you know, there's a good way to talk about that and whatnot. But some of those experiences were really great. And I think that they did a lot of things well. Most of the events I think that are most successful in our space are the ones that are focused on the people and focused on art and creators. And so when you create an immersive experience around art, or you create a spot for people to get together and not worry about anything other than just having a good time together, those tend to be the most successful. And then if you can layer on education in a way that doesn't feel stuffy, but where, and not just the same shit over and over again that you can hear on Twitter Spaces or everyone has been talking about for the last year, but actual new content, right? Where people are given the time and opportunity to actually stop and think and discuss something that they haven't maybe thought about that's that way before because of who they're in the room with. I think that we're just barely breaking the surface of like real good educational content that can be provided at these events.
Because we've wanted to do educational content for ages because it just seems like such an obvious way of actually talking to people, but it's super difficult because if you think about the meta, if you like, and it's generous to call it a meta because we all think it's a bit shit, of the generic Web3 event, it is overpriced speaker spots, overpriced booths that make people no money and dodgy awareness because everyone's just crammed in this room of stressed people who've ever spent. You got to have a really basic shit art gallery that no one really pays attention to, and then actually the reality is that you overpay for a ticket for that bit everyone hates, right? Everyone wants the pop-up. So if you can make an event where people get the right level of that first bit and you combine it with all the goodness of pop-ups, that's where I think you win. I'm just wondering now, off the back of doing the first event, obviously you raised X amount of money to do it. Do you think you need a big budget? We're talking like multi millions, or do you think you can actually put on quite a good, solid, intimate event? And I don't mean like a pop-up, I mean like you guys did for Metaverse Miami. Do you think it really does require big bucks to pull off spectacularly?
I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I think having visited like, you know, the NFT Now thing, they spent lots of money. Like the gear that they put together and pulled together, it was lots. I mean, it was backed by MoonPay and Instagram and whatnot. Yeah. Right? A lot of money. And then on the opposite end, we pulled together something that was essentially a bootstrap startup that I think was really successful. And so where we would like to land is somewhere in the middle of that. I don't think you need to spend $7 million, $10 million for a one-time event for 5 days or 3 days. But there is a bare minimum to be able to staff it correctly and not have to be stressed about the funding on it. So that's, I think, what we're searching for is that sweet spot to where it's a win-win for the participants, the vendors, the sponsors, and everyone gets a positive ROI out of it.
Do you know what I always think that is wrong at a lot of these events that we go to? And it pains you probably more than me, Kelsey, at this. Food and drink. It's like the quickest win. And I think everyone always goes for something really fancy, like something
Free
like
bar.
crazy vegan options and like this really obscure coffee. But as a travelling Brit, all we want is a burger, some chips and a
Free
beer.
bar.
And like
Yeah.
we understand the need for coffee. Tea with milk would be good as well.
Give
But so
it
many
a
times,
pint,
like
mate.
we leave the events in the search of food and drink. Everyone's leaving the event for the same thing, trying to find something that they actually want, and then you spend less time at the event. So I think low hanging fruit, sort the food and drink out. Don't make it too crazy, and you get better attendance. Well, better stayed
Such a good point,
attendance.
to be fair.
100%. And I mean, one of the things we wanted to focus on was hosting this event at a place where people could stay. So they're not having to leave to go to wherever their hotel is, or at least they have the option, right? And then also having food and drink on site that are, it's a resort, so you have your variety of spots to eat.
Well, I was glad that when we arrived at the party that we did, it was I think it was free beer, so we were happy with that.
No, it was a sex on the beach.
Happy.
Oh dear. That's why that's how I ended up in my pants with a traffic cone on my head down the beach in the swimming.
You started off in the pool.
There was free beer as well, but apparently Calcio didn't see it.
No, I did see it, and it wasn't Louty Lager. It wasn't Stella, fancy. So Americans do this thing where they've made beer so complicated now, where they have to talk about the flavours. Mate, I just want a straight cup of brown, right? Just a lager that just goes, whoop, and it's gone. And then I look around and go, that was nice. We'll have another one. Before you know, you got 8. I want that. I don't want to go, ooh, there's a super zesty feel to this bit of beer. No. So that's why we ended up on the sex on the beaches. But Jimmy makes a great point. Like for us, I'm quite a fussy eater anyway. Ooh, life story. But I don't like eating a huge amount of food. And sometimes I just want a little bit of basic scratch. Give us some chips. But it all comes down to convenience, right? Everyone wants to be able to go and do something, A, B, C, D. Mm-hmm. Feel relaxed critically. Feel like they can actually have a good time. And I think a lot of events either don't care because they're charging people way too much money. It doesn't matter. NFT NYC is a great example. They don't give a fuck because we spoke to, I can't remember who it was, but it was a big marketplace, I shouldn't say anyway, and they paid $150,000 for a tiny little booth, and I'm talking like 10 foot on the 8th or 9th floor. So it just creates such a negative atmosphere. And I think actually going about it and just giving me beer and burgers is great, and then
honestly, he wouldn't leave. You'd have him there for the entire event.
Is that a good thing?
It is a good thing as long as we can contain how many beers you have in a day. Because once you hit 12,
no one's able to contain Calcio's drinking. Like Jesus, really more than a blockchain for that.
We did. We introduced some soccer, and he actually regulated himself because he didn't want to.
I did.
For a bit. By the end, I'm sure he had a beer in his hand.
Yeah, which day?
Did you hit 20 that day, Calcio?
No, I bottled it on 15. Basically, I made a fatal error. So when we went to I did good. I was going into the Doodles event on 14, and you know that thing where people go, "Hello, my name is Calcio, and I'm on my 6th beer." So I did that so basically, it was in the morning. We watched the USA lose, so they went out the World Cup, and I accidentally had 7. I had 7 pints before 12 o'clock because it was like. Yeah, I total accident, right? So I sat there, I thought, hang on a minute, we're on for one here. So then I thought, right, we'll take a little break.
He was never going to make it.
By the time we got to the Doodles event, we were at like, I think 13 or 14. So then I thought, okay, we're going to do it. But the critical error was the Doodles event had no good beer. It was all those, very zesty, hoppy beers. So then Sex on the Beach came back out, and then I ended up being carried back to the hotel.
Yeah.
That was Dildo Gate.
Yeah, I have lots of footage of that. So
yeah,
good.
Yeah, I'm having that removed from my mind through therapy.
That sounds expensive. You should send Calcio the bill.
Oh, not again. We'll card roulette it again. That's that. I watched that clip back, by the way, when I got home because I was like, right, that no one's ever recorded. I keep losing card roulette. It's ridiculous. I watched it back and I thought, how has this happened again? And I'm convinced.
What's this? The clip of? Sorry.
Me losing card roulette again.
Card roulette.
I'm convinced that someone's like planted in her mind somehow. She's got to pick me.
It's funny because literally the day before he was telling me that he thought card roulette was rigged against him the last time he played, and then and so that's why you got that like neutral person to do it. But yeah, your luck is not in for that game.
Yeah. Well, next time you'll get it. Don't worry. You'll win next time.
Yeah. There's always next time. Harry.
Good question, actually. I really wanted to talk about as well was how did you find the Doodles event? Because obviously we're all Doodles holders. We all, in some capacity, like Doodles, I assume. And as a consequence, naturally all ended up at the Doodles event. And I wondered how you found it as an experience compared to the NFT NYC experience specifically, though.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So the NFT NYC experience had multiple different aspects to it. There was the live minting of the boxes, which was one thing, and then there was the sort of announcement venue with the big thing and the party afterwards. Actually, so 3 things, and then there was more of the hangout at the pub where we had like a home base, right? So it's hard to compare one thing to three, but I will. No, I can do it. That's fine.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like what they did is they took their learnings from New York and I think they listened, right? One of the big things that the community seemed to be voicing after New York was some people were really aggravated that they had to pay for drinks at the big party where there was the announcement and then the party afterwards. Okay, so that was one critique. Another one was people were really complaining about the long lines and the access and just the logistics of the minting and getting into the two of the three events, right? And a lot of people said they loved having a pub to just hang out at where there was food and drink and they could spend time with their friends.
That was the Brits.
Yeah, and you know, whether it was vocal minority or not, I feel like they did a pretty good job of listening. And then I think what they did is they took all the successes and learnings from South by Southwest, which was an immersive experience. And I think they combined them all together at DoodlePutt in a very successful, seamless way. I didn't experience any long lines waiting to get in.
No, massive.
As a holder, drinks were comped and it was top shelf stuff. It was nice. I know you don't care, Calcio, but it was nice that it was you know, quality drink, right? For holders. Holders felt like VIPs. It was great. And then the immersive experience aspect of it, which I think leaned really heavily into showcasing the IP in an interesting way, being family friendly, which a lot of the doodles, you know, a lot of the conversation of doodles is how accessible it is. And it's, you know, it's going to be easily recognizable and beloved by everyone. My 3-year-old knows what my doodle looks like. You know, I had the DoodlePutt golf card that I brought back from Miami, and she grabbed it immediately because it was colorful and, you know, engaging and whatnot. And then as an event, it was fun. I actually kind of wandered in close to my tea time, but not exactly. I randomly connected with Juicy Cat and Bay and ended up playing with the three of them, which was super fun. All of the, you know, the holes were, you know, thoughtfully designed and there were stories behind them, which, you know, you either notice or don't, and it's still a good event no matter what. And then the enticing element at the end that you could win a doodle felt a little bit, how do I want to say this? It's funny. I have a specific story that's probably more critical than most people at that part, because I actually got the ball up the ramp into the little hole.
Shit. Okay.
Oh, nice, yeah.
So I felt like there was no chance in hell that anyone was going to win a doodle at all. And I don't think it would, like, even if they had set it up so it was a little easier and 11 people won doodles, it would not have impacted the brand or the business in a material way at all to give up 5, 6, 7, 8 doodles from the community wallet.
Yeah.
And it would have, I think, had an outsized impact.
They gave out, I thought they gave out 9.
I think
9.
13. I heard 13. I don't
13,
know
yeah,
the actual
13.
number is. But I did say, when we played, we
that's
saw
amazing.
loads of people with the exact same experience as you. We literally saw a guy get it straight away up. He ended up with a par 4.
Yeah,
so I do agree with you.
Okay, so maybe just the people that I talked to, like, yeah. I didn't talk to many other people who even got the first stage. So I'm happy to stand corrected on that. If 13 people won doodles, that's great.
We saw a guy nearly destroy the TV screens in there, didn't he? He took
Callum.
Happy. It was your brother. Took a Happy Gilmore run up. Bounced it all around the room. The guy behind the desk had to take cover. PTSD is flared up.
I genuinely really agree with literally everything you've said there to a T, because the big thing that we noticed was, first of all, it was quite frustrating having to go from 3 totally different places to do stuff, right? Like, even though the experience in New York was fairly close to the pub kind of bar area, it was still a trek, right? And then obviously the actual venue, I know it was a one-off for that night. It was completely other side, right in the centre of New York. I think I paid $14 for a warm can of Heineken, and it's nothing to do with the actual money. The beer being warm's not great, but it's exactly like you said. You want to feel like you have, for us as well, we've come thousands of miles to be at this event, and then, like you said, being able to feel like you actually are somewhat valued is good, right? So getting the sort of basis of that. But the biggest thing you mentioned there, which is really important, is that you feel like you are having an experience as opposed to an inconvenience, right? Like waiting for 2.5 hours, which is what we did, I think, in the end, or an hour and a half for the minting process, only to then have to pay X amount of money. I know you could sell at any point from when you paid.
And also we had to queue for our passes for how long as well?
Yeah, and then after we'd done all of that stuff, we didn't even get the experience of actually minting it live. The guy just said, right, here's a card machine, the machine's not working.
Yeah,
so for us, that was shit. Whereas when we went to the DoodlePutt, we just walked, like you said, straight in, even though I'd forgotten my fucking pass because I'm an idiot. I still managed with no issues to get in. We played straight away, and we're chatting to people. It's not overly loud. Do you know the crazy thing as well? They had Jamie XX there, who's like a British guy, Spotify artist, who 2.5 million views, monthly listeners on Spotify, just DJing in the background, and it didn't feel overly abrasive or in your face like you were going to a big thing. You still did put dildos in people's faces. It was like the right
level of attendance, wasn't it, in terms of amount of people? Like, it wasn't like crazy. It was good.
Do you think that's bear market related though? Like, do you think if they did, so I know obviously NFT NYC came at a shit point, but everyone had already, like for us, we'd already pre-booked it. If you switch the two around and you put the event that we just went to in Miami in New York, do you think it would have had the problems with queuing? And I know space is very different and stuff like that, but do you think it would have been as busy?
People, could it? Like, it wouldn't have been able to hold the NFT crowd.
Hard to speculate because I think it was bear market related. I know that tracking on our own assumed attendance and things like that, we knew it was going to be lower than bull market. So I'd say it's probably like 80% market dependent.
Yeah.
But there was still a very vibrant overall Art Basel experience. It's just how many things are going on at the same time.
Yeah.
As a holder, I only spent probably the final party night. I was there for probably 4 or 6 hours. And then I went the day prior and played DoodlePutt for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't hang out all day there, which I think it was designed to accommodate if you wanted to. But a lot of people were at other stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. It's definitely the best activation I've been to from any of the NFT brands that we've kind of supported or looked into or followed.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This is a good question then. So for you then, naturally scaling is what anyone wants to do, right? And the biggest differentiator that you have is a massive can't control, in that the reality is the market can pick up or die and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So obviously you can cater to it on a period like you did, and obviously as you realised when you come to originally thinking you were going to launch in the summer, date changes and everything like that, by the time you get to November, you're probably fairly aware of guessing where size is going to be. How hard is it for you to then scale up? Let's say, and again, hypothetically, comes to next summer, market's absolutely banging again. How hard is scaling up that quickly as a brand?
As a brand, when you're doing events, I think if you have a core sort of, not just business model, but a core set of principles around which you build the event, you can scale up as budget allows fairly easily. However, that, at least for Metaverse Miami and the brand that we're building, size isn't actually one of our core metrics. We don't want to be the biggest event. We actually want to maintain a more intimate event and quality. And I'd rather have an oversubscribed event where the tickets are hard to come by, but everyone wants to be there, than sell as many tickets as we can each year. Which is why we tokenized it. It's why we sort of built it the way we did, and why we started this first year by just taking our deliberate steps to build relationships with sponsors, vendors, and speakers, because that's the backbone of what we want to do. Like, everyone said the welcome party was like one of the best ways to kick off Basel, because almost the party was just chock full of Web3 OGs all hang out together. I mean, you guys didn't make it, but like the feedback we got was great. I mean, Vinny Hager and Gabe Weiss and Parrot, like there was just all these artists like just hanging out at tables drawing. There was, whether it was Hunter or Farouk or Nick and Pio, and our whole speaker lineup basically was all there just hanging out. 100
very cool
OGs and their friends.
It's really important. We've been to so many events where I think you almost feel like you have to go, but not in a good way. NFT NYC is the epitome of this, right? Where you kind of feel like you have to go. Forget about the pop-ups. We felt like we had to go to the actual thing, but there's no real... we didn't listen to a single panel because it was just really messy. You didn't feel like you wanted to be there.
You don't go to the event, right?
Exactly, sure. That's what I'm saying. Whereas, I think what you guys have done really well, from anyone we've spoken to about it as well, is actually made people want to be at the event and not necessarily just there because it's another thing that's there, which is hard to do, I think. So good shit if you've actually managed it, because I literally can't think of any of the events we've been to this year where both of us have unanimously said, that was amazing, we should do this all day. Most of the time it's fucking hell. It's a bit of a drag. But yeah, I think it's been good. What would be great for us to close on actually is kind of giving us a bit of a summary in a minute or less on yourself, Kenobi, and more importantly, like what we can expect to see in the next 12 months from Metaverse Miami.
Oh man, okay. So I'm Kenobi, and I am one of the co-founders of Metaverse Miami. Metaverse Miami is a Web3 native tokenized NFT metaverse and art innovation conference. It's a brand that we're building out over the coming years that will be multiple events throughout the year. And we have a small community of holders that will benefit from our perpetual rentable ticketing system. We are just trying to push the space forward and elevate builders, creators, innovators, and provide recurring events that everyone can come together, gather around, and really celebrate all the things that we're here trying to do together. It's kind of a shit elevator pitch, but
oh, that's pretty good. I'm in.
I liked it.
I'm in. It's been a pleasure, Kenobi, as always. I keep going to call you your real name, which is so hard to not do.
Got to make sure to build into the roadmap food and more football, soccer.
I know. I could talk to you guys. I mean, we spent a lot of time together in Miami, so I could talk to you guys actually a lot and quite comfortably. And I think one of the greatest successes of the week in Miami was the fact that we did some things that are not traditionally associated with Web3 events, which was, Andrew Wang and myself and Loxley from Rug Radio and a bunch of people jumped into a group chat and pulled together a random 11v11 soccer pop-up, right? And like, that was big fun.
It was great fun.
It had nothing to do with Web3 other than we all had that interest that was shared, and it overlapped with our interest of soccer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you guys. Like, thank you so much for having me on. Really a fan of the podcast and what you do.
Thank you, man.
Who isn't?
And yeah, any excuse to chat with you guys, as I'll always take you up on that.
Yeah, we want to get you back on more regularly for sure. I think it's one of the biggest things we want to do, pushing our content in 2023. I just completely stormed over you there, sorry, Jim, but it's really actually bring people back. Oh, fuck off, you cheeky boy! Bring people back on. Like, we had such a good time in Miami. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, sometimes we do episodes and you just start to get to know someone and then it closes off. And I think actually for us, one of the biggest things we want to do with the content, Jimmy might be like, what the fuck's he talking about? Is get people back on all the time and just chat, because ultimately when you find people that you enjoy speaking to, logically the content will be better. But what we'll do is we'll drop all of the social links for Kenobi, Metaverse Miami, and anything else you want below. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been your host, Calcio, joined as always by my fellow host, Jimmy T. We'll see you soon on the Right Click Say podcast. Have a good day.